Hi everyone. In this video, we'll be discussing about conceptual framework, especially how a conceptual framework is formed. Yes, we have discussed before a theoretical framework and conceptual framework, basically how these two kinds of framework are different. But this video, we are entirely discussing about conceptual framework, especially the relationship, the associations, the linkages between and among variables, and how it can be justified logically, especially empirically and theoretically. Well, let's take a look at this. This is a conceptual framework. So here we have left hand side of a paper should be this side, should be all independent variables. So it can be multiple independent variable, maybe 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter at all. But we have to take note that right hand side somewhere here should be dependent variable, and we are not really considering, in fact not possible to have a multiple dependent variable. It should be only one. But for independent variable, yes, we may have multiple independent variables, no problem of that. So here we have business orientation, underneath we have knowledge, trust, commitment and opportunity development, and here we have underneath of business network, we have competition, necessity and many other things. So here what we can say, this is business orientation is a variable or maybe factor or maybe construct. I repeat, this business orientation and business network, they are variables. Underneath of this, they are dimensions. So if we want to say this is a variable, we may say these are dimensions or these are sub-variable. Okay, so here we have two independent variables, yes. So these two independent variables, and next one is called business exposure. This business exposure, and we have another one is called business success. So business success, we have another two dimensions, financial and non-financial. However, this business exposure, we don't have any dimensions. So these two, business orientation and business network, they are independent variables. Here business success should be only one dependent variable, which is here, and we have whatever we have in between independent left hand side and right hand side dependent, whatever we have, we call it mediating variable. So now the question is whether it is allowed to be to have like multiple mediating variables. Answer is yes, we may have another one between business exposure and business success. So we have, if we have another one, so we may have multiple mediating variable, just like multiple independent variable. But again, dependent variable should be only one. Well, as I told you, conceptual framework, it is coming from the concept, your concept as a researcher. But this concept has to be justified empirically and theoretically. So empirically and theoretically how? Yes, all of these constructs. Okay, before that, let me explain once again. How many constructs do we have in this framework? We have 1, 2, 3 and 4. So we have altogether 4 constructs or 4 variables, where we have 2 independent, 1 mediating and 1 dependent variable. All right, so these all variables and the relationship between and among. So again, between and among, this between and among should be justified through empirical and theoretical review. So let's take a look at this business orientation. The first one, this business orientation towards business exposure. Here we have few things. We have business exposure related internationalization model, which is called I model. So this is theoretical support. And we have impact of business orientation on business exposure. Yes, this is empirical support. We have plenty of support where researchers, they have talked about
the relationship of this business orientation and business exposure. So with this theoretical, the orange color or the yellow color, and empirical just underneath of it, these two can justify the relationship between these two variables. So from here we can draw the hypothesis. We can state this one like this: H1 is business orientation is positively related to business exposure, which we can see from here. So how about the next one? Yes, business network. We have some dimensions underneath of it, but for the time being we are considering this business network as a whole, as a construct, as a variable, whatever we say, towards this business exposure. And where is the support? Okay, here is the support. The first one is called network theory. This network theory basically can justify theoretically the relationship between business network and business exposure. And here we have impact of business network on business exposure. This is empirically supported by a lot of researchers. So that here we have H2, which is called hypothesis 2. Business network is positively related to business exposure, which is here. So these two linkages are justified empirically and theoretically. So I would say theoretically and empirically, whatever. So here we have another relationship of business orientation towards business success. Yes, the question is, where is the support? All right, here is the support. Theoretically, revised Uppsala internationalization model, which is called revised Uppsala internationalization. So RUIP. So this RUIP model can justify the relationship between these two variables, which is called business orientation and business success. Of course, the impact of business orientation and business success, it is justified through empirical review. And here, okay, we have new one, flaws of missing dimensions and variables. Yes, in the problem statement we have to identify the flaws of missing dimensions and variables between this orientation, business orientation and business success. So from the problem statement we have another one at the bottom, address gap, business owners and policymakers. So you see, if we talk about these flaws, missing dimensions and variables, if this is a problem statement, so we have significance of the study. So after conducting this research, the gap will be addressed, and from there business owners and policymakers, they will get benefit. So here, this is problem statement, this is significance of the study. So I would say whenever we write problem statement, make sure that this problem will be addressed properly. By the way, from here we have H3 of this relationship or association between this business orientation and business success. That's why business orientation is positively related to business success. So this is H3. How about the next one? Here we have, okay, here we go, business network towards business success. As usual, justifications are here. Again, network theory can explain this. Okay, now let me explain a little bit of something else rather than saying this relationship. Yes, the question may raise, how come here we can see network theory here and network theory here? So this one theory, can it be justified, or can one theory justify multiple relationships? Answer is yes, it can. Doesn't matter how many relationships you can justify with one theory, but make sure that each and every relationships are justified via theory supported by empirical reviews. So here, this network theory can explain basically business network towards business exposure and business network towards business success. So this theory is pretty good, can explain this. Okay, here let's come back to the topic of association between business network and business success. Here, this is network theory, which is theoretically justified. This is impact of business network on business success, empirically justified. And the next one is the problem statement, because no clear indication of contribution of business network towards business success. Yes, this is a gap. This is a real gap. So to encounter this gap, at the bottom we can say that add value to theoretical contribution, of course, and antecedents of SME's success. All right, here business network and business success. So H4, we can form like this. Business network is positively related to business success. All right, how about business exposure to business success? Yes, we have the relationship which is justified with RVV, or resource-based view theory, and relationship between business exposure and business success. A lot of researchers, they have talked about that, so empirically justified as well. Now, what is the problem statement here? Yes, few studies only in terms of this context and business exposure leading to business success. So this only few studies, like lack of research, dearth of research, limited number of studies have been conducted on the relationship between these two, or association between this business exposure and business success. Definitely this is a gap, research gap. So to encounter this, the last one, of course, narrowing the gap, and from here business owners and policymakers will get benefit. So how about the hypothesis? Yes, this is the hypothesis, H5. Business exposure is positively related to business success. Now, one thing I should explain. Here we can see that H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and whatever. So how we are plotting the hypothesis? Remember, usually hypothetical statement, it has two types. We have null hypothesis, or H0, or H0, or sometimes we call H null. So null hypothesis basically talks about no, means no relationship. So the question is, what we do? Do we take null hypothesis? How about alternative hypothesis? Yes, I have told that hypothesis we can state like two ways. One is called null hypothesis, another one is called alternative hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis always talks about yes statement, positive statement, means there is a relationship. Null says no relationship, here says there is a relationship, regardless, positively related or negatively related. Next question arises, if it is null or alternative, which one do we use? Yes, we use alternative hypothesis. That's why we usually put like HA or H1. Since we have multiple hypotheses, that's why instead of putting HA, we put H1, H2, H3, H4 like this. Now the question is, we are saying alternative hypothesis means there is a relationship. Whether it is positive or negative, how we can state that? Yes, very good question. Answer is, from the literature support, we need to understand whether it is positively related or negatively related. So we need to identify that. Example of negatively related hypothesis: job stress and job satisfaction. For example, if somebody does this, so of course job stress and job satisfaction, they are usually, from a common sense, it is negatively related or inversely proportional. Of course, literature also will be talking something like this. So here we need to put there is a negative relationship, or here in this case we have all positively related. Last question on this: can we just ignore whether positive or negative? Because if we are not sure, can we put like this: there is a relationship between this and that? Answer is yes, of course we can do that, no problem. Come back to the topic. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 relationships. So here business exposure is a mediating. Now the question is how we can put this mediating relationship. Before that, remember, hypotheses, they are nothing but they talk about the path. How many paths do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So we have 5 paths, means 5 primary hypotheses. How about H6? Because we have mediating between this and that. Business exposure is mediating between business orientation and business success, and business exposure is of course another way mediating between business network and business success. How to write that? Okay, we can write like this: H6 business orientation, which is here, business exposure, in between of business success, which is here. So it is mediating. So how to read this? Business exposure, we need to start from the mediating part. Business exposure is a mediating between business orientation and business success. Yes, this is the mediating between this and that. How about the next one? Very easy. Business network as a mediating, right, between business network and business exposure mediating between business network and business success, which is written here. How about moderating variable? Take a look at this. Ethnocentrism. If we consider this as a moderating variable, so how to state this? You see, this one mediating, independent towards mediating towards dependent. All the arrows are hitting on the constructs. This arrow starting from this construct hitting on this construct. Here goes, yes, same thing, starting from this construct, this arrow hitting on this construct. Another one starting from here hitting on this, on the construct. Remember, if we talk about moderating, for example here, ethnocentrism, okay, moderating hypothesis or moderating variable, the arrow does not hit on another construct, instead it hits on the path, means the relationship between two. So it should hit somewhere, not here, but on the relationship, on the path. Let's take a look at this. Okay, it will be clear after this. So this one basically is indicating here the relationship of business orientation and business success. So this arrow, so it is hitting on this arrow basically. So it is moderating the relationship between business orientation and business success. Okay, where is the proof? Yes, how ethnocentrism will impact the business success of, let's say, small business or SMEs or whatever that internationalize. Okay, so this is the problem statement. Next one, little research on shortcoming of business orientation towards business success. Yes, that's how we have the last one, clarify the moderating part of ethnocentrism. This is the significance of the study. So come back to this, H8, we have there is a moderating effect of ethnocentrism on business orientation towards business success. So sorry, success is missing here. So business success. So that's how it is like this. Now, if we want to state the hypothesis, it should be like this. Okay, here one thing I should address. Okay, here H1 is relationship between business orientation and business exposure. But how about H1A, B, C, and D? Yes, these dimensions. Some research, yes, some researchers, they consider dimensions as well. So they can put like this. Since this is H1 relationship, so H1A, B, C, and D. Same goes here. This is H2 relationship between business network and business exposure. So we have H2 is this one. So underneath of H2A, B, C, D, E, F. So we have 6 dimensions. So you can state like this. So the impact H3, of course, like this. This one towards business success. And here also the same way. You can put like this. And this is H5. H6 and 7 is mediating, and H8 is the moderating. So the question arises, can we put only H1, H2 without considering dimensions? The answer is yes, we can put. So if someone wants to ignore the dimensions part, yes, this is only a simple statistical analysis at the end of your research, especially like chapter 4. So you can easily ignore that. Again, I repeat, basically it totally depends on your research questions and research objectives. Whether your research objectives, they talk like dimension wise or how. So whatever you put here, whatever you state here, make sure that it matches with your research objectives. All right, this conceptual framework, we have how many hypotheses altogether? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 primary hypotheses, 6 and 7 we have 2 mediating hypotheses, and H8 1 moderating hypothesis. Altogether we have 8 hypotheses.
So that's how the conceptual framework is formed. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this video was useful to understand more clearly about conceptual framework.